must be brown, or she'll get suspicious. He dashed outside and came back with a can of dark brown gloss paint. "Where's that medicine of mine, boy?" came the voice from the living room. "You're forgetting me! You're doing it on purpose! I shall tell your mother!" I'm not forgetting you, Grandma, George called back. "I'm thinking of you all the time." The paint had cooled the mixture down and made it go a lovely, rich, creamy brown. He tipped all Grandma's real medicine down the sink, and now all he had to do was pour the new magic mixture into the bottle, using this small jug. There. He put the cork back in the bottle. "Medicine time, Grandma!" And holding a spoon in one hand and the bottle in the other, he advanced into the living room. No, he was going to give her the real thing. The marvellous magical mixture that he, George, had brewed up in his mother's great big saucepan. In the living room, Grandma sat hunched in her chair by the window. The wicked little eyes followed George as he crossed the room towards her. "You're late," she snapped. "I don't think I am, Grandma." "Don't interrupt me in the middle of a sentence," she shouted. "But you'd finished your sentence, Grandma." "There you go again," she cried. "Always interrupting and arguing. You really are a tiresome little boy. Oh, what's the time?" "It's exactly 11 o'clock, Grandma." "You're lying as usual. Stop talking so much and give me my medicine. Shake the bottle first, then pour it into the spoon, and make sure it's a whole spoonful." Are you going to gulp it all down in one go?" George asked her. "Or will you sip it?" "What I do is none of your business," the old woman said. "Fill the spoon." As George removed the lid and began very slowly to pour the thick brown stuff into the spoon, he couldn't help thinking back upon all the mad and marvellous things that had gone into the making of this crazy stuff. The shaving soap, the hair remover, the dandruff cure, the automatic washing machine powder, the flea powder for dogs, the shoe polish, the black pepper, the horseradish sauce, and all the rest of them. Not to mention the powerful animal pills and powders and liquids, and the brown paint. "Open your mouth wide, Grandma," he said, "and I'll pop it in." The old hag opened her small wrinkled mouth, showing disgusting pale brown teeth. "Here we go," George cried out. "Swallow it down." And he pushed the spoon well into her mouth and tipped the mixture down her throat. Then he stepped back to watch the result. It was worth watching. Grandma yelled, "Ow! Ow!" and her whole body shot whoosh up into the air. It was exactly as though someone had pushed an electric wire through the underneath of her chair and switched on the current. Up she went, like a jack-in-the-box. And she didn't come down. She stayed there, suspended in mid-air, about 2 feet up, still in a sitting position, but rigid now, frozen, quivering, the eyeballs bulging, the hair standing straight up on end. Is something wrong, Grandma?" George asked her politely. "Are you all right?" Suspended up there in space, the old girl was beyond speaking. The shock that George's marvellous mixture had given her must have been tremendous. You'd have thought she'd swallowed a red-hot poker the way she took off from that chair. Then she came down again with a plop, back into her seat. "Ah! Call the fire brigade!" she shouted suddenly. "My stomach's on fire!" "It's just the medicine, Grandma," George said. "It's good, strong stuff." "Ah, fire!" the old woman yelled. "Fire in the basement! Get a bucket! Man the hoses! Do something quick!" "Cool it, Grandma," George said. But he got a bit of a shock when he saw the smoke coming out of her mouth and out of her nostrils. Clouds of black smoke were coming out of her nose and blowing round the room. "By golly, you really are on fire," George said. "Of course I'm on fire," she yelled. "I'll be burned to a crisp. I'll be fried to a frazzle. I'll be boiled like a beetroot." George ran into the kitchen and came back with a jug of water. "Open your mouth, Grandma," he cried. He could hardly see her for the smoke, but he managed to pour half a jugful down her throat. And a sizzling sound, the kind you get if you hold a hot frying pan underneath a cold tap, came up from deep down inside Grandma's stomach. And the old hag bucked and shied and snorted, and spouts of water came shooting out of her nose, and the smoke cleared away. The fire's out, George announced proudly. You'll be all right now, Grandma. All right, she yelled. Who's all right? There's squigglers in my belly. There's bangers in my bottom. She began bouncing up and down on the chair. Quite obviously, she was not very comfortable. You'll find it's doing you a lot of good, that medicine, Grandma, George said. Good, she screamed. Doing me good? It's killing me. And then a funny thing happened. Grandma's body gave a sudden sharp twist and a sudden sharp jerk, and she flipped herself out of the chair, landed neatly on her 2 feet on the carpet. That's terrific, Grandma, George cried. You haven't stood up like that for years. Look at you. You're standing up all on your own, and you're not even using a stick. Grandma didn't even hear him. The frozen, pop-eyed look was back with her again now,